As somebody who is no longer chronically online, I don't see every single piece of like speculatory reporting or even the actual reporting that comes out where like, hey, this team is targeting this player. So like in my chimp brain, the whole time leading into the draft, I was like, okay, it's probably Jabari 1, Chet 2, Paolo 3, or like in some order of that, but I didn't think Paolo was going to go number 1. Then TLDR, he ends up going number 1. Woj comes out 5 minutes before the draft actually starts and the Magic are on the clock, and he's like, hey, I'm pretty sure that they're going to go with Banchero here, and my brain just exploded. I had no idea what to think, because if we rewind the clock, go back to like last November or something, right? It took us like 2 games, if that, to figure out that Paolo was an NBA player who just had to spend a year in college. That's all that he was. Because the disparity in talent that he was facing at Duke was, I mean, it was indescribable. It was so obvious from day one that Paolo was, if not the number 1 pick in the draft, then easily a consensus top 2 or 3. And then, he ended up going number 1. And I don't know what it was. Something made me fall out of love with him as the season went on, and I don't know if it was because I was looking at guys like Ben Math or guys like Keegan Murray or guys like Jabari Smith, Chet Holmgren. Like, I don't know if it was just because I started to diversify who I actually was paying attention to, that I just kind of was like, yeah, we know what Paolo is. He's going to be really good. That's fun. But like the element of the unknown is more fun with these other guys. I say that just to say I was clearly wrong to believe that. And so when he got drafted, I also want to throw out there, we all have those teams, and some of you aren't even basketball fans and you watch these videos. We all have those teams in whatever respective sport or league it is that we watch that you just don't like whether it's for stupid reasons, right? Like, it could be the color scheme. It could be like their uniforms are always bad. You know, like some of you, even though I'm a Pistons fan, I know that some of you are just going to, are always just going to be like, bleh, towards Detroit and like very lukewarm towards them. One example of that would be when Zion got drafted to New Orleans. When New Orleans won the lottery, I was devastated because like I was just out on the Pels. I wasn't that. I was like, oh, I wanted him to. I only wanted the New York thing, not because I wanted him to play for the Knicks, just for the sake of the spectacle, I guess, and just like I don't want to say brand recognition, but something about him playing for the Pels was just kind of like that to me. And credit to New Orleans, because now I'm all the way in. I love them. I think Brandon Ingram has a lot to do with that. The Anthony Davis mega trade that brought a bunch of those dudes in, the Josh Harts of the world, the Lonzos of the world, etc. Like, I've done a 180 on New Orleans, and I love them. I cannot say the same about Orlando. I'm still in a place where I'm just like, I have no legitimate reason to not like them. It's a vibes thing. It's like a uniforms thing. I think the uniforms always suck. The Galaxy uniforms have just only ever been terrible. So Paolo going there, I was like, you know what? It makes sense that a guy that I just don't love for like reasons that I can't explain and don't have legit reasons for went to a franchise that I just inexplicably don't love and don't really have reasons for. Then you go into Summer League, you do the preseason, you do all these exhibition games that don't actually mean anything. And even though it's really fun for us as fans to be watching these games, because like, ooh, it's the element of the unknown. You got your new guys out there, and you're going to put a lot of stock and a lot of faith in guys that you actually shouldn't, because Summer League, even though it's really cute and it's really fun, it really doesn't mean that much. Preseason, it's really cute, it's really fun, but after one game, we're just kind of like, okay, can these games, like, can they count now? Like, can we get to the point? Finally, the same way that we are in this very video, we get to the point. Orlando, Detroit, opening night. And I hate to make a video on the strength of one game, but Paolo was brilliant, and I have to say this. Usually when there's somebody who I'm just like nah on, it takes me 3, 4 months, 5 months, the duration of a calendar year, maybe even a couple seasons before I'm kind of like, all right, fine, this guy's sweet. It took me like 15 minutes of in-game time to realize, oh yeah, this Paolo thing is gonna work, and I had no reason to not like this guy, because holy smokes. And even though, like, one thing that's consistent with me is I'm never going to be the guy who gets up here and talks about, like, VORP and defensive win shares, because, like, I'm just some guy. I'm not going to spew a bunch of numbers at you, and that's to me, it just isn't very fun. But one thing that we can use as a really strong indication of, like, holy friggin' smokes, look at this guy, was putting up 27, which is the most points from a number 1 overall pick in a debut since LeBron friggin' James. And it was a decisive 27, right? He's in the Mr. Right place at the right time, Mr. Right Now. For an album that was Savage Mode 2 was great. I'm not going to make a Mr. Right Now joke, but Mr. Right place at the right time, Paolo Banchero. One thing I love about all of the dudes that were kind of in the front end of this draft, right? You look at the Jabaris of the world, Paolo, Chet, Jaden Ivey, Keegan Murray, even Benedict Mathurin. What I love about all of them is how laterally they dribble. Maybe with the exception of Chet. I think he's kind of got some stuff. He can put the ball on a string a little bit. But like all of these dudes just go in a straight line and like they're going to get, like Keegan Murray is the best example of a dude who's going to give you a fucking capital B bucket. He's going to put your ass in the basket, but like he's just going to do it dribbling in a straight line or like pulling up from 27, like on a spot up, catch and shoot three, whatever it is, right? But like he's not a dude who's like hitting you with the hezzy Jimbo. He's not hitting you with a sham god. Like Ivy every once in a while will throw in like a little blah, blah or throw in the Euro step at the basket or something like that. But for the most part, he's just a bull in a china shop and he's just going to run right through you. I'd say that's pretty consistent with most of these guys, and all of them are incredibly gifted scorers. As evidenced by the opening night for like pretty much all of these guys. Ivy was pretty great. Benedict Mathurin, pretty good. Jabari Smith, pretty decent. Paolo Banchero, excellent. It's a Magic team that was playing pretty cohesively, and I think they will all year. This year, if you're a Magic fan, just kind of has to be a culture year, right? You're still getting the gears turning. You still want to see some stuff out of certain guys. Like, what do we have with Jalen Suggs? Like, what's his deal? Is he going to be able to figure this out? And there are moments already that we've seen like, okay, yeah, we can point to this thing and be like, there's something there, but then you look at this other thing and you're like, this is why, and this is not a Jalen Suggs video, but this is the March Madness bump that you get out of certain players. Like Jalen Suggs hits the shot to send Gonzaga to the natty against UCLA. It was against UCLA, right? The buzzer beater that he hit. And immediately you have mock drafts spewing Jalen Suggs is the best guard in the draft. And he's skyrocketing. Now, eventually, by the time the draft circled around, he had kind of fallen back down to earth a little bit. But it's this idea that sending players to the moon on the strength of one shot. I'm pretty sure he was also the most outstanding player in the Final Four that year, of the tournament that year. But there's something about him where, again, it's just a vibes thing. But back to the thing about just like dribbling in a straight line, going lateral all the time with Paolo. I don't even think that's necessarily true, but with somebody who has a frame, the frame that he does, right? He can bulldoze anybody. The dude is fucking huge. If I had to pick somebody who I think is going to lead the league in second chance points, like among rookies, I think Paolo might be one of those dudes. Like he's just always in the right spot around the rim. Like he just knows, he's got that, like, I'm not going to call it a Rodman instinct where he just knows where the ball is going to come off, right? Because there's a lot of dudes ahead of him who are a lot better at it than he is. But for somebody who is his age and has the experience that he does, or rather lack thereof, in the NBA, I think he's really shown a sharp inclination of figuring out where to position himself to give his team the best chance on a second chance opportunity. Additionally, brother, he's so violent. When he wants to throw some shit down, he throws that shit down. And it's always loud. It's always, he's like, "Wah!" And as a note for posterity, for those who command it, yeah, the game was against Detroit, a team that, defensively, I'm sure is going to have their shortcomings this year, right? It wasn't fantastic last year. They're still trying to figure out switching. You got a lot of switchable defenders on this team, but not everybody's very disciplined, and everybody gets gassed pretty quick. But 27 is 27, and in this league, I'm not going to be like, oh, it was against a team that's bad defensively, because that's garbage. And honestly, speaking to the very point of maybe lacking some defensive prowess, which I don't think Paolo would fall under that umbrella. But I think if you want to use the principle of maybe lacking some discipline, I think you can use opening night as a pretty strong indicator of maybe what I don't, not what I don't love, but maybe what